Hello, students. Good morning, all of you. Today, I, Rabindra Mohan Misra, from Sri Jagdamba Sanskrit College, Batho, am taking the class of Shastri first. Yesterday, we have seen the structure of the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. Day before yesterday, we have seen the summary of the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. Today we see narrative technique applied by Robert Browning in his poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. Narrative technique of the poem Home Thoughts from Abroad. The beautiful poem Home Thoughts from Abroad is composed by Robert Browning. Browning was a great Victorian poet. In this poem, Home Thoughts from Abroad, the poet celebrates the everyday and the domestic, taking the form of a short lyric. The poet casts himself in the role of homesick traveler, longing for every detail of his beloved home. At this point in his career, Browning had spent quite a bit of time in Italy, so perhaps the longing for England has a bit of biographical urgency attached to it. The poem describes a typical springtime scene in the English countryside with birds singing and flowers blooming. Browning tries to make the ordinary magical as he describes the thrush's ability to recreate his transcendental song over and over again. The form of this poem is very critical. This seemingly simple little poem reacts in quite complex ways to both Romanticism and the development of the British Empire. The domestic bliss and raptures exchange with nature that characterize many romantic poems emerge here as the constructions of people who do not live the life about which they write. But these constructions were integral to an illusion of rural England that served as a crucial background for many philosophical ideas and as a powerful unifying principle for many Britons. As the British Empire grew and more British citizens began to live outside the home islands, maintaining a mythical conception of England became important as a way to differentiate oneself from the colony's native population. As works like Foster's A Passage to India show, The British abroad in the colonies, such as India, worked much harder at being British than their compatriots in England. Thus, in this period, sentimental thoughts of the English countryside, as such as the ones in this poem, hardly ever present a pure nostalgia. Rather, they carry a great deal of ideological weight. Nevertheless, this poem contains much sincerity. Browning had left Britain, although he lived in Italy and not in a British colony. And as is evident from the poem, his relationship with home was a troubled one. Although the speaker here longs for home, he does not miss it enough to live there. Perhaps some things are best appreciated from abroad. Perhaps some emotions are felt more accurately away from home. And perhaps, as this light little poem implies, it is only away from home that one can create serious dramatic poetry. The setting of this very poem is unique. The setting of the poem is in some foreign place. The most of the poem speaks of England and places in it, and then later shift to some countryside full of fields. The primary setting of the poem is some place outside of England. This is evident from the title and from the lines of verse used in the poem. The foreign place is the poet is in at the time of its writing is Italy. The speaker of the poem uses vivid imagery to describe certain trees in England. In stanza 1, he described the elm tree, and in stanza 2, he described the pear tree. The description is so vivid in the second paragraph that it is almost dreamy. There is a small metaphor in the last second line of the second stanza when the speaker says that the fields and the buttercups are dowries to children. Now, dowry obviously cannot be given to children, equating the meaning to imply that the fields and buttercups provide children happiness. The rhyme scheme of the poem is irregular, so is the stanza part. There are two stanzas, different in length, the first one with 8 lines and the second with 12 lines. The rhyme scheme of the first stanza is A B A B C C D D. The rhyme scheme of the second stanza is E E F G F G H H I J J. As it is seen, it is without a pattern except for the poem's rhyme scheme and number of lines. It resembles an inverted sonnet. It divides into two sections. each of which is characterized by its own tone. The first, shorter stanza establishes the emotion tenor of the poem. The speaker longs for his home. The second section, this section contains two trimeter lines followed by two retrameter lines, three pentameter lines, and a final trimeter line. It rhymed AB, AB, CC, DD. The meter pattern and the rhyme scheme give it a sort of rising and falling sense that mirrors the emotional rise and fall of the poem's central theme. The burst of joy at thinking of home, then the resignation that home lies so far away. The second section is longer and consists almost entirely of pentameter lines, save the 8 lines, which is tetrameter. It rhymes AB, A, B, C, B, C, D, D, E, E, F, F. The more even metrical pattern and more drawn out rhyme plan allow for a more contemplative feel. It is here that the poet settles back and thinks on the progress of the seasons that cycle outside of him. In its metrical irregularity and surprising last line, as well as its overall tone, the poem suggests the work of Emily Dickinson. In short, we conclude that in these lines, in this poem, the poet expresses his happiness lies towards the motherland. He expresses his gratefulness towards his country because he is benefited by his home country and wants their peace. Again, we visualize that this poem is very interesting because this poem has been nobly planned and has artistic coherence, and therefore it is an organic whole. Thanks.